Close enough, let's call the meeting to order. The roll call show that all councilors are present. Rise if you're able for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order. Welcome. Okay, Michelle, I guess it's yours.
I guess it's okay. All right, so the first item on the agenda is a short PowerPoint to talk about how to conduct meetings and meeting conduct. So Ed will go to the next slide. So typically, organizations use some form of Robert's Rules of Order, which was written in 1876 by Army Engineering Officer of the Regular Army, Henry Martin Robert. And he basically decided that after running around the country professionally and also having to attend some meetings personally, he felt there was a need to provide some guidance in order to control the chaos that was meetings. So there are 12 editions of Robert's Rules spanning the years from 1876 to 2020. I have a couple. My husband knows I'm kind of a Roberts geek, and so he picked up a couple books for me, so it's kind of fun. There's actually an official website, robertsrules.com, and I found it to be extremely interesting, and again, I'm just going to admit it, I'm a geek. They have some frequently asked questions about minute or meetings, and they have interpretations that, questions that people submitted, and they provide interpretation. So I thought and the answers are not written in legalese, so it's very helpful for running a meeting. So thank you, Ed, for switching the slide. Robert's Rules is widely used by groups of all sizes and types. We use it at the Fair Board. Councils typically use it, county boards, legislatures, the House and Senate at the federal level. And again, the purpose of Robert's Rules is to establish procedures so that all members of the assembly have the ability to be heard on any subject that comes before the governing body. The rules provide structure to efficiently conduct meetings. And then if you've ever watched CNN, when you see the federal House or Senate debate, and also at the state legislature, they have parliamentarians whose sole responsibility is to keep track of points of order, amended motions, because it can get very complicated to know where you're at in terms of when you start getting into things that probably I shouldn't say we'll never do, but it's the probability of us doing it is pretty small. When you start amending motions and amending an amendment to a motion, you have to kind of work backwards, and trying to keep track of that can be very complicated. So that's why they employ parliamentarians to kind of assist the chair. Next, thank you, Ed. Meeting components, agendas. You should have an agenda. Those are topics to be discussed and decided upon. We as a staff provide an agenda. However, that's not to say that any member of the body could amend the agenda to add an item. And then, of course, we've talked about during the open meeting law discussion the need for a quorum, and that's the minimum number of members required to legally and officially conduct business. Now, let's say in the case of the council, we have a quorum of 3, but during a meeting there's an emergency, somebody has to leave, we no longer have a quorum, we can no longer conduct business. So that was very clear on the Robert's Rules website. That was one of the questions posed by one of the frequently asked questions. Then we have motions, votes, and obviously adjournment. And I attached for your packet some short and sweet cheat sheets, because motions can be complicated, and whether or not you can debate a motion or not debate a motion is part of that structure and organization of conducting a meeting. So motions can be used to introduce business, suspend further consideration, which is also known as tabling, amending a primary motion, reconsider a previous action, remove something from the table. And then motions can either be debatable, amendable, or neither. You can slide the next slide, please. That's okay. So debatable motions include primary motions, a motion to amend a motion, and a motion to postpone consideration of an item. It's not tabling because tabling implies that you may never bring it back, but say we bring something to the council and you direct us to provide additional information, and you would postpone deliberation to a date specific, time specific date. Sorry, I just repeated myself.
Like we would say to the next council meeting.
Correct.
Or in 2 weeks.
Yep, or in, on such and such a date. Non-debatable motions include adjournment, recessing a meeting, tabling an item, and a motion to move to what I in our nomenclature at the Fair Board, Frank Hartman will often say, I move to call the questions, which basically then stops debate, and you need to vote on the motion to call the question, because you're basically saying, I want to stop debate and vote on the subject matter at hand. So in order to stop debate, you need to discuss whether or not you're stopping, you can't debate a motion to call the question. You have to vote on it, and then if it fails, then you can continue deliberation. So.
Because I've heard many times where somebody will say, we'll call the question, and it just goes right to.
I know, it depends on how much of a stickler you have in terms of whoever's attending your meetings. I mean, theoretically, should you vote on it? Yes. Most of the time, most people are just willing to just move on and vote on this, whatever the motion was.
I'm not trying to question, I just have heard it different ways, that's all.
We do the same, we do the same thing at the fair, and I've never made people vote on calling the question, so.
Well, I could see how it could be a problem if you had somebody that always calls the question as soon as somebody starts saying something that they don't agree with.
Correct, that's
Like,
why.
I don't think that would
Yep.
go over
It could
very
be,
well.
could be abused.
Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why if you look at the cheat sheet, one of the tables, depending upon the motion, you may need more than a majority vote, because the motion is significant. So, moving on to the next slide. So, motions can fail due to a lack of a second, due to a tie vote in a motion, or if there are insufficient votes. So if a motion, say, requires a 2/3 vote of the body and you don't have 2/3, then the motion is going to fail. And as I note in the slide, most motions only require a majority vote. And there's a difference between a topic and a motion. So a topic might require more than a majority vote. So for example, ordinances require typically 2/3 vote of the council in order to be adopted. So motions that require a 2/3 vote, moving the previous question because it effectively ends debate, and objecting to considering an improper topic. So, and those are some of those key things. An abstention is not a vote and is not to be counted as a vote. It's just a statement.
For our purpose, when you say a 2/3 vote,
Mhm.
I mean,
was 5 people,
Right.
the same, I mean, it wasn't the same really.
like if we get 3, is that good, or do we need 4?
We need 4. Yeah. And last but not least, at least on terms of conducting a meeting, I just threw some resources, robertsrules.com. There's a link to a Roberts Rules cheat sheet for nonprofits. That is it's a relatively nice website, easy to understand. It walks you through some scenarios, those types of things. Wikipedia surprisingly has a pretty comprehensive, and of course you gotta take that with a grain of salt because it can be edited, but what I reviewed on Wikipedia seemed relatively accurate, and they referred a lot back to Robert's Rules of Order, the various editions and those types of things. Like I said, I included some cheat sheets. If you are working with a board and, or you want to just have something here at the meeting in case you forget something. There are alternatives to Robert's Rules of Order, but I didn't list them here, but if you're interested and bored one night, you can Google alternatives to Robert's Rules of Order.
But the city's adopted Robert's Rules.
Correct, yep. And like I said, Robert's Rules is the most widely utilized version of structuring meeting conduct and conducting a meeting and making sure that, again, people are heard and things can flow efficiently.
Mhm.
So, otherwise it could be the Wild Wild West.
Mhm.
So are there any questions about Robert's Rules, making motions? I didn't want to spend hours on it because, like I said, it can be relatively complicated, but I thought I'd boil it down to what you would use and experience on a regular basis at our meetings.
No, I think it was good. Anytime, we have a question,
Mhm.
you or Damien can usually
Yep.
answer it and say, yes, you need to see that or whatever,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's always good to get a refresher and stuff like this.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So then attached to this is just a refresher that on meeting conduct, I included this in the packet. In 2024, the council officially adopted a meeting code of conduct, and it applies to all of our the council and all of the boards and commissions of the city. It addresses professional conduct, conflicts of interest, confidential information, non-discrimination, and sexual harassment, which we don't want. And penalties. So that's in your packet as well. And I think it's been working well. We had it was a little bumpy in 2024, but I think that the code of conduct has assisted in reminding us that we are professionals and we want to be respectful to each other and those types of things. So, anybody have any questions?
Says for penalties, with the exception of those members appointed by outside jurisdictions. So we don't have like accountability measures for those folks?
Well, specifically that was to address the fire advisory board. So that's a joint board whereby
Sort of township.
other townships, we're not responsible for appointing those members. So, I mean, we would report,
Mhm.
poor behavior to the town board in question, but we don't have any ability to remove them from that particular board. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
why that
It's
paragraph
kind of a
was
joint coalition of.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep, it's all the townships that the Princeton Fire and Rescue Department serve.
Mhm.
But what you're saying is every other board that we appoint people to,
Correct. You have the ability to remove, up to removal, penalize, censure, however you wanna call it. We haven't had a need, so it would obviously, if there was a need, if there was an issue, we would need to, and that would be, Damien's not here, but that would be a consultation with the city attorney and a recommendation as to the best course of action to pursue. So. All right. I will be putting this on the regular study session agenda topics. That was the other reason I kept it short.
Is it like refresher?
Correct. So, all right.
So I just want to clarify something when we talk about other boards, because I just saw on here for public utilities, it says that if they choose to remove a member, it would first be requested by the PUC and then they would bring it to city
Correct.
council to basically
Yep, and
approve it.
Yes, and that was the agreement that we had, when we adopted this initially, that was the language that the council agreed to.
Okay.
Yep,
Cause this board appoints them, so I suppose only this board can
correct.
unappoint them.
Correct.
Use that word.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and the issue is that, as the board, that board would need to determine that whatever the action would be untenable. And so, I mean, cause I'm not there to observe, the council's not there to observe their meetings. You
I mean,
know,
I'm there.
yeah,
That's fair.
You get back up once they're together.
Yeah, you watch online.
Yeah, and they're online, yeah.
Yeah, so, anyway. Anything else?
Put you on the spot.
I'm there to liaise.
Please. Okay. So, city engineer, Kevin is on remote, so, the next two items he's gonna help me with. So we've talked about the franchise fee, and we've talked about the stormwater utility fee as, methods of funding infrastructure improvements and stormwater improvements, including capital expenses relating to stormwater activities, which would include the sweeper, all of those types of things. So we'll start with the franchise fee. I put in the current rates and the proposed rates as calculated by WSB. We have identified in the CIP a number of street reconstruction projects and a potential roundabout and utility extensions at 13th Avenue, which I don't have numbers for, but roughly just the street reconstruction projects, we're looking at $9 million. Some of those costs are covered by Minnesota State Aid. Some of them will be covered by trunk water and sewer fees. And then obviously if we implement a stormwater utility, some of the improvements will be constructed or paid for by the revenue from the stormwater utility fee. But there's always going to be a gap because the state legislature doesn't provide grant funding for reconstruction of old infrastructure. They want us to build stuff for new jobs, those types of things. So there's always going to be a gap in funding.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So on the list of improvements that are coming up, is there still talk, is it still like open and up for discussion and everything about the other roundabout? The one by the Glen Meadowcraft,
Yep.
Walmart,
Yep.
that one, and then would we be responsible for part of that as well?
Yep. Yeah, we're still, that one, I feel like there's more grant opportunities for that. There's local road improvements, there's highway safety improvement grants, there's carbon reduction grants, those types of things. So I think even with the roundabout on 13th, I think there's a little more, when you look at the carbon reduction stuff and the safety stuff. I think there's a little more wiggle room. We've had some significant conversations on the 13th Avenue roundabout with MnDOT. We did apply for a grant for that. We did not receive it, but I think part of the problem was that we're too far ahead of where MnDOT's at. So we keep pushing.
Can we reapply?
Yeah, we can reapply. We'll continue to reapply. And the conversations with MnDOT have been very good. We're continuing to be the chihuahua at the ankle of MnDOT on that one. And we're working cooperatively and as much as we can collaboratively with Mille Lacs County on the CASA, the First Street and 21 roundabout. So, I mean, so we're working it.
Okay, the First Street, that would be pretty much all county there, right?
It's 3/4 county and one.
Oh, we have the one county.
Yep.
But now the county's not involved at all in the other one.
No, it's a MnDOT city.
Yep, we have
it's-
one lake for sure, and then
We would have two because we
we're gonna
would.
cross.
Yep, we would cross, and the hope would be to
I haven't
push.
seen any plans, so I don't know.
Yeah, we have a preliminary roundabout layout.
Okay, there's not an existing road there now on the north side.
Yeah, well, there's an entry. Yeah,
I'll have to look
because
at it.
yeah, and
I'm
the,
a visual person.
yeah,
It's an actual road.
yeah, it's an actual road.
Right,
It's gravel.
I can't visualize where it is. I know there's road there, but I
Yeah.
can't visualize it.
Yeah, so the plan would be, the hope would be to not only get the roundabout in, but extend utilities and
Well, yeah.
improve the road.
If you're going that route, you wanna do the whole works.
No, not long ago, we looked at information on like a traffic study, right, for out by Walmart.
Yes,
where it was,
yep.
We don't need a roundabout because traffic isn't there yet, and then we slapped a
Gotta be now.
car dealership there.
Yeah, actually, the intersection control evaluation report, the
Yeah.
ICE report, actually showed that, while a stoplight, is like way off in the future,
Right,
that a roundabout actually is warranted in terms of the movements
mhm,
and, the types of incidents we've had. In fact, there was
That's a big factor, isn't it?
yeah, there was a T-bone accident, maybe a couple months ago. That was pretty severe. It was a Palmer bus van against
It's
another.
surprising there aren't more there. Really.
Yeah. So the roundabout improvement is actually, was proven to be warranted doing the intersection control evaluation report.
mhm.
So that, we're using that as a foundation for any grant applications that comes through. And of course, the whole point of carbon reduction is, when you don't have a stop condition,
idling.
you're not idling, you know, you're slowing down, but you're not stopping, or or if you are stopping, you're not stopping for a significant length of time. So,
During very heavy traffic times, or
yes.
week stops, maybe.
So, so traditionally, if we look at those funding gaps, traditionally in the past, back when I first started in this position, not this position, but started my public service job, assessments were a significant component of road and infrastructure improvement projects. Over time, the courts have, by their decisions, have determined or have encouraged cities to use assessments less and less, because the courts have said the amount that is assessed has to have a rational connection to the improved value of the property.
Mhm.
So like if, say you do a road infrastructure improvement project, and you need to assess $15,000, but the resulting property value improvement is only $5,000, there's a gap. Because the residents can't recoup the cost of that assessment. So cities will often use, only assess a portion of a project, say 25% or up to 50%. But franchise fees, and Kevin can speak to this more intelligently than I can, if I misspeak. Franchise fees are, because they're a lesser amount, they're done as part of, the electric and gas collections. They're more palatable to residents and business owners.
They just spread the cost out over very, very wide.
Correct, it's not just,
Through streets, everybody uses them. And
correct.
you gotta have a sewer connect,
Yep.
if it don't work, so.
So what I did was, the current franchise fee is either expired or soon to expire. So the first chart is what the current franchise fee is, totaling monthly, and then the total annual, and then what the proposed, based on the future, costs that we have identified, what we're proposing. And then one of the questions that I had for Kevin is there a way that we could use a portion of the franchise fee still to fund park improvements? And based on Kevin's response to me, you can use a franchise fee and divide the fee for two purposes, if that is the desire of the council. And we also don't have a statutory limit on how long a franchise fee can run. Now, the last franchise fee had an end date of 5 years because it was tied specifically to bonds that were being sold in a specific project. And so at this point, I'm looking for some direction on the 5 questions. Well, technically there's 6. In the memo, do you want to renew the franchise fee? Do you feel that the amounts are too high, too low, just right? Sound like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. We're looking at 10 years, correct, Kevin?
That's typically what folks do, is somewhere in that 10 to 15 or 20 years, but I would say 10 is pretty good, and then we can always reevaluate and extend them as we want to as well.
Okay. And then the 4th question is, do we want to just have a flat rate over the 10-year period? Do we want to include some form of annual inflationary increase, or do you want to check in like on a regular interval, like every 2nd or 3rd year, and adjust the rates accordingly based on inflation and upcoming project costs and those types of things? And then question number 5, do we want to, I note in the memo that if we added $1 to just the residential rate, we can generate roughly $32,000 that would go into the park improvement fund. And then last is, how do you want us to engage the public on the renewal of the franchise fee should you choose to proceed? So, just a few questions.
Should we just start with number 1? Take them one at a time, I guess.
Yeah, that would be great.
I would say.
Can I ask Bob, did you have a question? Okay. You had your
I think we
hand.
definitely, I think for myself, we should renew it. I think by all means, I do like that form of funding over assessments and property taxes and stuff like that. We can't keep piling everything up on property taxes. It's just, we gotta find other ways. But now, the one that's in place now is expired or is going to expire?
I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's
I think it
expired.
was the end of April.
I'm thinking
Yeah,
you're
well,
correct.
Yeah, it was either the 1st of April or the end of April.
Yep.
I guess my thought is, so that we're not gonna overlap and double.
No,
There's gonna be
definitely not.
One over, out and new. So.
Correct, yep.
When were those original amounts agreed upon?
2018,
Okay. And so they were flat the whole time?
correct.
Okay.
Well, that was like the park betrayal thing, wasn't it? Or,
Correct. Bob will correct me if I'm incorrect, but it was used to fund a portion of the Great Northern Trail and Reedy and Riverside improvements.
Correct.
That's right, yes.
So are we looking to get to the total of 9 million at some point? Or, because right now we're at, $5,299,800 over 10 years. If we don't have any, fluctuations or increases.
Correct, and I don't believe that's our intent. I'm with Kevin, but because some of those costs, some of that 9 million, those 3 streets that are identified on the CIPs, those are all part of our Minnesota state aid system. So we're gonna get funding on the street portion for, from that. And we would factor in, if we implement the stormwater utility, any stormwater improvements, would, be funded either by whatever's eligible for state aid, and the remainder would be funded by the stormwater utility fund that we would collect. So no, I don't believe we're trying to get to the 9 million at this point. Do you want to add anything, Kevin, to that?
No, you were correct in what you're kind of sharing there. This is just a portion of your funding potential. There will still be the state aid portion, and so there will be that aspect too.
okay, so what you're proposing is for 10 years, right?
Correct, so,
And that means you're proposing a steady level, or you're asking for input.
correct, so right now, the way that this is calculated, these rates would remain flat over the 10-year period, so these will be monthly rates collected by the utilities, and then they would go into our capital reserve funds to be used for street and infrastructure improvements. Now, if the council says, the council says, hey, we want these to be checked every time we go forward with a project, because right now in the CIP plan, we have a project roughly every other year. And the council might say, well, we don't want to do that interval, we want to skip a year, we want to spread things out a little bit. And the council would say, well, we want to look at whether the franchise fee that we have in place is sufficient or are our assumptions correct. That would be direction you could give us. So that kind of gets into like item number 4. Do we want them flat, or would the council would prefer the ability to review them at a regular interval, like every time we get ready to do a big capital project, we look at the amounts in the fund and whether or not we need to make an adjustment either up or down, because correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, the amounts could go down, correct?
Yep. Yeah, you can modify it how you would see fit if you would like to. Every time you meet on it, or as long as you vote on it, you can modify the rates.
And that can be done.
I would add in a little bit to so the last version, when you're typically using franchise fees for like a specific project that you know the amount that you bonded for, and you're using it to repay that bond, typically you would see that more as a flat rate, where if this is like a funding source for ongoing projects, you might look at more of doing it as a annual increase to meet inflation. So maybe it's 2%, 3%, whatever that inflation rate might be. And you just slowly keep bumping it up that way.
I don't know if I missed this. Can you share how we got the proposed fee numbers?
Yeah, so the total amount, so we basically did we looked at our next 5 year or our next 10-year pavement management plan and kind of came up with a rough idea of the total dollar value that we're going to need. And that kind of got us to what we would need to include in franchise fees after subtracting out what we would get in state aid funding. And then from there, we were looking at basically comparable cities a little bit, and their rate structure. And then it really was just entering numbers until we ended up hitting the total dollar value that we were needing to hit of that 529, 560, or in that ballpark. So.
We're more than just throwing darts at a board, you have some substance to them.
In less official terms, yeah, somewhat. You're trying to obviously keep it within reason of the gap from your residential to your commercials. You don't want to put all this tax burden on your commercial properties, but you're also trying to keep those ratios fairly close of what you're kind of looking at. So.
Yeah, the projects listed in the CIP, specifically the 3rd Street, 2nd Street, and 4th Avenue are all based more on the underground infrastructure because if you review the pavement management plan, Bob and his crew, and the fact that we do seal coating we hit every street every 4 years, the actual surface of the roads is really good. So we really couldn't say that this street is horrible and therefore it needs to be first on reconstruction. So the CIP project list is the underground infrastructure, specifically sewer, and also these are part of our Minnesota State Aid street system. So that's why we have an offset for costs, because we know revenues are coming in on that part as well. So
When you calculate the commercial, you got two, commercial A and then commercial industrial. Right from residential to those, obviously it's a significant difference, we know that, I think, but.
yeah,
How do you, does that kind of follow like a normal tax structure? I don't know if I'm saying it right here.
I don't know how it was done originally, so do you know what Kevin, do you know what the difference is between commercial A and then the commercial industrial B?
I'm not sure either. Well, I mean, obviously we're gonna have to somewhat review those exact categories and just make sure that we're still 100% commercial or comfortable with it, but basically what they have in there is large commercial / industrial and small commercial. So we'd have to check, and it'd almost be more of a question for Connexus and the PUC and Centerpoint of how they have their rate classes broken out. So I believe that would be a rate class structure from them.
I guess what I'm maybe asking here, I'm having a hard time phrasing it, but is the percentages used, I'll use that term, percentages, do they all match from industrial to the whole category? Is it like an even type of percentage type? Maybe that's a bad question.
Well, it's hard, it would be hard to know because without having,
I guess I'm looking for
Connexus's,
something equal, are we treating everybody equally, is the bottom line?
I'm gonna assume we are because these were the service type, so it's the type of service. They're not changing from the current franchise fee ordinance to what we would propose for the future, the proposed franchise fee. So, and I know it's not a good thing to assume, but I'm going to presume that when the ordinance was originally adopted in 2018, that WSB was able to somehow garner enough information from the utilities in order to group these 5 service types together.
It's probably kind of a loaded question, but I'll go ahead.
I think what you were asking, Jack, is did like the commercial A go up 50% and commercial B went up more? Is that what you were asking, like the
I
percentage?
guess I'm looking, is there an equal, I don't know, equation used from
Well,
one category to the other, in percentages?
no.
Not dollars and cents, but in percentages.
I mean, if you look at the current one, the industrial B doubled, but the residential and the commercial A didn't double.
Because you're looking at the other, the old, or the present one, there's probably.
Yes,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah.
So like, commercial A was $4 and now they're gonna be 10. But the industrial went from 110 to 220, so they went up 50%. If that's the
Right.
question you're
Well,
asking.
I guess I kinda am, but I wonder, just use the present one, is there a residential, well, I guess, there's not really equal, is it? But maybe that's the way it's done, I mean, I don't know what. They would.
I have no idea how, what
Kind of do
the,
to us, I guess, so we don't.
yeah, I
really
mean,
have
I would
a lot
have to
work
dig
with.
through the files to see if there's any, if there was any breadcrumbs left for us to look at in terms of how they calculated those rates.
We don't really have any history or anything to look at here.
Well, if I remember right, the
Franchise fee.
franchise fee folder was pretty thin.
Yeah, I mean, it's like taxes though. You know, businesses pay more than residential. so
Yeah,
correct me.
and that's, I guess, where I was wondering.
Yeah.
We're doing an equal increase to residential,
Mm.
not in dollars and cents.
Yeah.
I mean, in increases.
Yep,
Obviously not dollars and cents, we know that.
correct.
So, a little off track, but let's say, for example, electric providers. Both are needing to charge this franchise fee regardless if it's Conexus or the municipal, that goes into their rates that they charge.
It does not go into their rates, it's a separate line item on the bill.
Sure, but folks might see it and be like, oh, this
Correct.
community utility is charging me.
Correct, and that ties into then the 6th question, which is, how do we market or inform the public
Mhm.
so that, it's very clear that this is a city charge, that the PUC is very, has been very helpful in collecting on our behalf.
Mhm.
Such that, you know, because you're right, people will see these new dollar amounts and, you know, it's harder to yell at somebody at Conexus or at Centerpoint, but it will be easy to target the local staff that's right down the street.
Mhm.
And especially when we're doing not only an increase in the franchise fee, but we have the potential for adding another line item with the stormwater utility.
Right.
And so that's why the question about public engagement, is gonna be a key question.
And that is what has to be done, so that option's off the table, which is how to get the public aware.
Correct.
Problem there is, or the ones that listen will hear. So.
Can we, I feel like a lot when these things are coming up, that we're working backwards, where we have the projects and haven't looked for funding, because you need to identify the project, but like, is there a way that we can be looking at what are our projects gonna be beyond the ones that are identified? And like, start kind of annually planning, like, could this be in the fee schedule meeting also when we're doing like that review? And so we review it annually and kind of be like, here's our projects, that's how we'll decide what it needs to be. Like, are we far off on funding the projects that are on here right now? where it needs to jump that much, or is it?
Well, so capital improvement funding doesn't work that way. Because first of all, you need to, you can do your best estimate, but it takes a full year before we physically do the project for doing
Right.
design work and feasibility. And some of these projects, like for example, the Smith system, old 18 sewer and road project, that's a 2034 or a 2037.
Material costs.
You know, so to try to, and then there's the whole question of, so we fund a portion of the levy, which you guys changed, 200,000 is now going into the capital reserve. So you have, you know, as a starting point, you have 200,000 as a capital reserve dollar amount that's being collected annually as part of your property tax. Now, it's possible that you could choose to remove that in lieu of the franchise fee. I mean, we'd have to look at those numbers. The issue is that the franchise fee numbers and the stormwater utility numbers, the ordinance for the stormwater utility says it goes on the fee schedule.
Right.
So we would be looking at it on an annual basis anyway. So it becomes an issue of, okay, what's upcoming? And this is where I said earlier, well, right now, the 3 street projects, we have one in 26, we have one in 28, and we have one in 30. Well, does that make fiscal sense? I can't, that was staff's best, what we thought was reasonable in order to resolve or potentially avoid a major project that would happen under emergency situations.
Right.
Because that's the worst case scenario, is we didn't do enough preemptive work and now we are doing things under emergency situation, which drives up all the costs. I mean, Bob can speak to that better than I can. So, you know.
We're working to do better, we're more.
Correct,
strategic.
so it's very possible that, you know, we might say, okay, we think we're gonna do 2nd Street North in 2028, but in reality, we can slide it a year. So we're gonna move it to 29 and let some more funds accumulate in our Minnesota State Aid Fund, construction fund. We're gonna let more of the franchise fee collect, because there's a cost to bonding, and if we can try to avoid adding more debt to the city, let some debt retire, you know, there might be some trade-offs there as well. So there's all these moving parts that are not easy to necessarily juggle all at the same time.
Sure, but I think like if we're looking at it annually and we're like, here's where state aid's at, here's this bond is getting paid off or not, this is what we're balancing based on that, here's what we're proposing for the franchise fee this year.
Correct, but then there's a time lag though, because you have to then inform, and that's a piece of the puzzle is, what's the process to update the ordinance to inform CenterPoint, Connexus, and PUC that the franchise fee is changing?
Yeah.
So
Forecasting
either
the best
having,
we
so having either an inflationary number or saying we're going to change it every 2 years, you know, still have a base number out there, but then adjust it every 2 years is probably gonna give staff time to properly process the ordinance on a timely fashion so that we can get those numbers adjusted with the utilities, so we don't lose what we're collecting.
Right, I'm just thinking like when you mention engaging the public, if we can tie it to something like, here's why. I think that'll help.
Well,
and if it's the every 2 years thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the point to the public would be, hey, you know, we have old aging infrastructure, we've done the best we can to maintain it with bubble gum, duct tape, baling
Paperclip.
twine, whatever, paper clips, whatever we can throw at it. But we're now at a point where we need to start looking at replacement and reconstruction.
Right.
And as opposed, and to avoid an assessment, or we have, you know, or we wanna improve our parks, if we decide to throw in $1 for whatever, you know, because we don't have land or places where we can build more structures, or we have very little left. So park dedication, and that's statutorily restricted. We need a way so that, hey, you know, we need to replace this playground structure, or hey, we want to do X, Y, Z. As opposed to trying to change the levy, it'll cost you, you know, two $5 lattes at Caribou or whatever it is, or in my case, two $6 energy drinks a month. From a residential perspective, to help fund streets and parks.
Yeah.
Those types of
You know,
things.
I think, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I think Concert Taylor touching on something we kind of got tentatively scheduled. It's going to be one component of many, I'm sure, of getting a financial plan in place that we kind of are a little loose on right now, I guess. So
Yes, if
I think we have a September meeting.
well, I'm gonna need some help from Northland and
No, I
it's
totally
on the
understand.
docket, but
That's what it should be.
yeah,
No, I'm just saying that
yep,
something we.
Yeah,
There's
part of the
gonna
larger,
be more than one hour work session on here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I agree.
But no, they're very good points.
How else do people pay for parks besides levy and franchise fees?
that's it.
Okay,
I mean, park dedication,
well, yeah,
yeah, I mean, park dedication, but that can only be used for when you have a new park and you're initially doing it, but in terms of park maintenance, it's your operating budget, it's the levy, it's bonding, it's franchise fees, it's, you know, that's what has to happen. If we want good parks and nice facilities, we need to somehow keep tabs and keep them up to date.
Specific projects occasionally get donations, but then that's a one item deal. Not big picture.
Well, yeah, I mean,
We always have
you
somebody
know,
coming in.
what we're just spending, just on concrete alone, we're spending what, 26,000 on the pickleball courts or the exercise courts or whatever it was that we approved?
Well, it's gonna be actually more than that.
Yeah.
It's two separate.
Yeah.
Yes, so we're looking at just under $100,000 for concrete.
that's under 32,400 that we have here for $1.
And then it seems like, you know, when we have a development going on, the developers are always wanting to negotiate that park dedication funds
Yeah.
to not have to pay it.
Yeah.
So we need to be a little more firm on that too.
Well, and that's why we've been, you know, when we've had an opportunity for revenue to come in, we've created that separate park improvement fund now so that we're not commingling
Right.
our donations and our park improvement funds with our park dedication funds, because that can get us into trouble, so.
So you're looking primarily at some ideas of how to get the word out, so to speak, the public
Well,
approach, I guess, or public information approach.
yeah, but I mean, I don't wanna assume anything, so we still really haven't given me clear direction. It sounds like we wanna renew the franchise fee.
Well, let's just start at number one.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, we've been drifting all over, yeah.
Yep, that's me, go ahead.
Yeah.
And that's fine, it's just that Kevin and I, in order to do kind of the next steps that we have to do, I need to make sure that we're moving in the direction that the council wants us to move in.
Well, I'm a yes on that.
I'm in agreement with the franchise fee.
Anybody else?
We need to renew it, yep.
Okay, all right.
Now the amounts, we've gone over that a lot, but I don't know that. you know, you can put down numbers, I think as long as we leave it, the option of making adjustments through the process, where do you pick a number? I don't know, I mean, you've done the best you could to get the number proposed, I guess, in my opinion.
Well, I think they did a good job with the numbers.
Yeah.
I think our only decision is do we want to add $1 to residential for parks, right?
Yep,
Is that the next question? I mean, do we agree with these dollar amounts? I think it's where we need to be. It gets us close to our 9 million.
But we also don't want to throw out too big a number jumps either, you know, 'cause,
well,
I mean, I don't know, we gotta prioritize for sure. And obviously the streets are the important things.
well, I would suggest that these would be, well, we can fine tune the numbers, but we would start with this. Until we actually adopt the ordinance, this is not set in stone at this time.
Hmm.
And so, if you think we're in the ballpark, and then if you say that for number 4, that you want to look at these and make adjustments every 2 years, then that gives us direction and plans so that we can be
Mhm.
in the know.
Yeah, I guess I would say we should leave that option open. That would be my.
Yeah, I think a 2-year review, not necessarily
Change.
change.
Still trying to make a
review.
plan.
Yep,
10 or,
okay.
is there
I guess.
a reason only residential gets $1 for parks?
Well, it was Kevin's suggestion. Part of the reason is because it makes all the numbers nice and even.
Sure, that's fair.
And,
But like, could we include for that $5 for commercial A, $1, or 10 monthly total, $1 of it goes to parks?
we can do whatever you want.
There's not as many people though, so it
Yeah,
might
that's
not
fair.
bring us to the, you know, we might have,
I meant with also the
50.
residential add-on,
Along
commercial A and.
And the residents use parks with their kids.
because I
Well, I
actually
think-
thought of that too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there's not very many businesses compared to
No.
residents.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And the
residents.
businesses, a lot of times they get tapped for handouts and donations.
That's also.
Absolutely.
Well, and the residents are the ones using the parks, not so much
Primarily,
businesses.
the
So,
kids. Parks are for kids.
And I think that was Kevin's, but,
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't ask him that question directly, but I think that was the theory, was that you can tie park services directly to residential.
yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the thought process. It also just bumped up just the center point franchise fee portion to match what the electric their 2 fees would be as well. So basically just bumped up the center point one to being $5 instead of the $4 what's being proposed.
Mm,
I mean, that's fair, right?
Yeah.
That's fair.
I believe it is.
I'm either way on that.
Okay, so yes on the renewal, yes, the numbers are fine for now, knowing that we can make some fine tuning. Are we okay with 10 years?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah, I think so.
and then regular reviews,
mhm.
whether it's 2 years or, well, at a minimum, it'll be annually, whether we adjust them annually or every 2 years or every 3 years, that will be dependent on council discussion and
Annually
direction.
and as needed.
Or if we just leave them. And then it sounds like we're good with changing the residential gas to $5 from 4 for parks. Okay. And then, I guess Kevin and I can come back with a more, now that we have this direction, we'll come back with a more detailed schedule for adjusting the ordinances and sort of a PR campaign.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wasn't, that was the year before I got on council, so I wasn't part of it, but it sounds like we had some residents that weren't happy about it, so I think we just need to do a really good job of
Okay.
explaining to them why we're doing it.
Okay.
You know, especially, you know, with the gas prices right now and stuff,
Yep.
people are a little touchy, but,
Do we know going forward with these other projects if Is there potential for assessments on top of that as well, or would it strictly be off of bonding and then what we get out of that?
I would say in general on reconstruction that we would not do assessments.
Okay.
I haven't rewritten the assessment policy. I think there are areas where we have the potential for new infrastructure that would have the potential for the city to assess either all or a portion of
Okay.
the improvements.
I just think that makes it a little easier
Yeah,
to swallow for the public.
yeah, we would not, I
You
think,
don't have to worry
yeah,
about getting an assessment for your road being
correct,
taken care of.
Yep.
Now it's
Like,
collected here.
yeah.
like a new development, for instance, that usually built into the total cost.
Correct, that's what I'm saying for
Like,
where there isn't reconstruction like the, you know, like say, or like there isn't, where there is not excuse me, back up, brain clear itself. Where there is not currently infrastructure, like, for example, I'll use the 50 acres that the school district has. And they,
The Pontiac project, if everything's done.
and we have an agreement in the developer's agreement when we're pushing utilities out to the West Plains, Pontius, they've agreed to have an area assessment. So, so in that case, I would say yes, but I would not, it would be very difficult to double dip. And that would be a double dip.
Yeah, that wouldn't go over very well.
No. I mean, the whole point of this is to try to make life a little more palatable when it comes to reconstruction. People are already inconvenienced by having the road turn up in front of their house.
That, and for the residents, I think having a number here that they're paying, there's not that chance of
Yep,
a big number coming down.
Correct.
Because of a project that you say.
well, like I said, it's a lot easier to forego 2 coffees from Caribou or Starbucks as opposed to,
Hey,
okay.
Don't buy a new car.
Yeah. All right, so Kevin and I have direction, we'll work with the WSB staff to come up with a PR plan and we'll bring it back to the council at a future date, so. All right? Okay, now, the stormwater utility fee. And you could have knocked me over with a feather when I was in the basement and I happened to see the 2007 flyer. And then we did some more digging and there's actually an ordinance on the books. Bob will, looking at my historian over there. So back in 2007, the city went through with WSB and actually put together a PR program. We adopted an ordinance. For whatever reason, I cannot fathom why they didn't start collecting. I don't know. There's no.
paid all that money and then
Yep.
Kind of like counting ditches, but you.
So it's a little disheartening that we could have been using some of this funding to offset staff costs, supply costs, all this time, but water under the bridge or through the culvert.
Can't go backwards.
we can do better.
So having said that, WSB has looked at, again, our projects are, so we can offset staff time. We can offset, in the future, the sweeper costs, which is coming soon-ish. We'll be able to offset our MS4 permitting requirements, which will probably hit us sometime after the 2030 decennial census. And any other expenses that we might incur relating to protecting and maintaining and improving stormwater quality. So identifying all those things, WSB came up with the amount, and of course offsetting some of the stormwater project costs that aren't covered by Minnesota state aid. and looking at those upcoming street projects, WSB put together what our revenue goal is, and in this case factored in a 3% annual increase. Because if we use it to offset staff time, we're gonna have obviously wage increases and those types of things as well, so. In here, and we did have a conversation with General Manager Butcher, and we initially thought we were gonna tie this to the water services, but because we don't control the rate structure on water, but we do on sewer, he suggested that we tie it to our sewer rates, and that does make some sense, because if we change our sewer structure, then we can just change the stormwater, which makes more sense. So now these are preliminary numbers. We have to go through and still do some analyses on the land cover and those types of things, but these are just preliminary numbers, so they're subject to change. Kevin, I don't think they'll go up, will they? They might go down. Are you anticipating?
Some of them would maybe go up, some of them would maybe go down. It all is, we'd end up hitting that same total dollar value. So that's not expected to change. It would just be within those service types if those end up changing based off of land use and total area.
Okay. So, so I just have two questions related to this. Is one, do we want to proceed? And then two, I won't ask the public engagement, because I think that'll be up to Kevin and I to present to you kind of the public engagement piece based on our just previous discussion, so.
I don't know if I totally get, okay, well, I'll use me for an example. I live in Meadowview.
Yep.
They have their own internal storm drainage, and they have holding ponds.
But it ties to the larger system of the city.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. Is
Yep.
that can be treated relatively the same, or?
Correct, because do you,
So all of our storm sewers, I shouldn't say all, majority of our storm sewer systems, they collect, yes, in your, specific to your neighborhood, goes to one pond. But then that pond actually goes across the highway to another pond, which then goes to a ditch that goes south of the airport.
Yeah, I just assume, I guess,
Right,
it's
so-
natural, it just kind of drained, or.
And so some of that does drain into, there's infiltration ponds where there's not an outfall. Most of these are set up so that it's an infiltration basin, and then there'll be an overflow that goes into somewhere if it overfills.
I'm getting a left, I would make the assumption that they just, settled or soaked away, or evaporation took care of it.
So what's interesting about here is that,
They're called settling pond, right? Because
yep, some of those are sedimentation ponds,
Settled.
but to your point, is that some of those ponds actually come up when the river comes up. And it's, they're driven by groundwater, so there's, these are the things that.
I'm sure there's one factor.
and even those ponds, if they get too much sediment, they have to be cleaned.
For the cost there.
The ditch that Bob was mentioning by the airport, that has to be cleaned.
And we've done that routine maintenance, and
Yep.
so we're, some of that is absorbed through the airport, some of it's covered by federal on that side, but yeah, this is really what it's gonna truly address. It's stormwater is something we should be looking at, and we were looking at, 20 years ago, just because it's a long-term, very slow process for those ponds to fill in that have to be addressed, potentially. And to Michelle's point that, my staff does a fantastic job maintaining our street sweeper, but keeping the stuff out of the catch basins and off of the gutter lines, because we're trying to keep it out.
Well, and sometimes, you know, it's like everything else. You know, I think 2 years ago, you were out here on Second repairing or rebuilding stormwater structures because of how they were built in the past. They were built in place with staves and,
Yeah.
and, you know, and those fail. So the time to, because then if the water doesn't go in the right direction, then you get erosion behind the structure, and pretty soon parking lots are falling in and turf hazards are created.
You know, and there's other utilities that were tied in that we found. That we went, oh, okay, so we had to build around that. And so we're actually working around 3-inch gas mains. Rebuilding the structure around gas mains that we didn't know they ran together.
Mhm.
No, first, I wouldn't have a clue if those numbers are appropriate numbers or not, I guess. It's up to guys like him, so, like Kevin, so.
Yeah.
But, okay, it's gonna be, so whatever we come up with here, it'll be a separate. Okay, because right now we have the building process, is a sanitary sewer, right, is that how it's titled, or?
Correct, so there'll be.
Enough time, I should know, but.
Yep, so the bills, so the utility bills will have electric, water, sanitary sewer, the franchise fee, which is already on there, and then there'll be a new line item that will say
So
stormwater.
we'll be a new line item.
Correct,
separate,
it will
so
be
won't
a-
be
correct.
combined with the main.
Correct.
sewer.
Yep,
It might make it a little easier to explain.
Mhm.
Yeah,
it all depends on,
who you talking to.
well, it depends on if people want to take the time to listen.
And that's always gonna be a challenge, no matter what you do or how you do it. I don't know, Council. What are you looking at? What do you want, I guess?
Well, what I would like is if there's consensus for us to proceed, the ordinance is already on the books.
We would just
From-
start doing the work.
Correct. You know, so if we want to actually start collecting a fee, then we will, the ordinance does need some work. So ordinance, I need to work with Kevin and Laura in WSB. And so we need to adjust the language in the ordinance and probably update it since it's roughly 20 years old in terms of the language, and we need to make sure it complies with the statutory requirements. So right now, all I'm looking for is consensus to move forward with that work, to move forward with that work and to then proceed with developing a PR program and getting things scheduled, so.
I think the case is made that there's a need, I guess, I don't know what the rest of it.
I'm in favor of both questions that you just said, moving forward.
Okay. All right.
That's the consensus, yeah.
And of course, we need to make sure that we do our homework on, the goal is to collect roughly $25,000 a month for the first year, which gets us to that $300,000 mark. So we just need to do some homework, make sure the rates are correct based on the service categories. So,
Ladies and gentlemen, suck it up, we're gonna get ready to be
Yeah. Start
bombarded.
bringing.
yeah. All right,
But I mean, ultimately, this should help our levy
correct.
by not having to increase it. What were we at, 6% last year?
Came in last.
It should
Either way,
essentially be
it should have
taking it
gone
off of
down.
the back end.
Yeah, it should help that a little bit,
Yes.
you know? So either way, people are
And if we-
paying for it.
Yeah,
but-
keep discussing and reviewing and everything that we do, then hopefully we can take care of stuff that needs repairs as it goes along and plan
Mhm.
as we keep going.
You know, that's one of the selling points for those that care to listen, I guess.
Well, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I think that's the adage. And I would like to,
Pound of metal fall at the same rate.
well, I would like to give staff the tools and the financial support to I mean, you know, a lot of this falls on Bob's and his staff's shoulders, but having more financial support in order to do the preventive maintenance and try to correct items before they become, it's the whole reason we came and said, hey, we need to fix the pumps on the south or the industrial park lift station, and we're working this year to move those electrical controls to the top and not bury them 20 feet below ground. You know, things that probably should have been done 20 years ago. You know, we're trying to make things better for the residents and also give staff the right tools and the financial support that they need to do the job right.
Social media is not gonna like us no matter what, so we might as well just suck it up and go.
So, for the public engagement,
Yep,
Kevin and Michelle, if you guys would make sure that the public gets informed really well of like what other cities do
Yep,
as
yep,
well, and maybe some cities about our size, we
Yep.
can show them what they're.
You want some good comps and stuff.
Yeah.
We really need some comps.
yep. It's interesting that you say that because I actually sent, so using our statistically similar cities when we did the classification
Yeah.
compensation study.
Yeah,
We're actually looking at those cities. Now, not every city has like a stormwater utility, but like, for example, Kevin mentioned in his email to me that in St. Cloud, he pays $10.80 a month on the stormwater utility. So we're not, granted, St. Cloud's bigger than we are,
Right.
but, you know, we're playing catch up a little bit too.
yeah, we sure are. Nothing like leaving a lot of money on the table. Yeah, I just think that's gonna be really important.
Yep.
You know, and like I said, like, don't compare us to Elk River
No,
or whatever.
no,
So, I think that's gonna be really important for people to see,
Yep.
because this is gonna be tough for, especially now.
yep, no, I understand.
But if we don't do it, the levy's gonna increase, and so it's gonna hit them that way.
Yep.
Otherwise, so.
All right,
One
more item.
I guess.
So the last item is, looking to do an invite to the Public Utilities Commission, for a joint meeting. And I have a list of topics to consider, and two possible dates, June 2 or July 14th. And so I'm looking to get your concurrence on that, and B, if there are any other topics to add or delete. And then my intent is once we can get a joint meeting scheduled, I would invite Conexus in to share their information and to answer any questions that the city council would be so kind as to, so I can give Conexus an idea of what you're interested in finding out.
So, first off, like, is there a reason why we're giving 2 different months as an option when the request was made in February to have the joint meeting in May and June? And here we're still sitting, they should have been here tonight, and they're not, because,
Well, this is my thoughts. The council has, you tell me what you want. If you want to give them one date, then that's what I will communicate.
I'm just gonna be outright and honest. I'm tired of this getting drug on. So Conexus has been trying to get information in front of us since November. And that got drug on, and then we finally decided, well, we wanna have, you know, a meeting with the public utilities before we have our meeting with Conexus, which, fine. So we said, let's set that up. And then we didn't hear anything, so the end of February, I specifically said, 2 months advance notice. Can we have the PUC meeting in May and then Connexus in June? And we never heard back from anybody. Dead silence, wouldn't respond, blah, blah, blah. Nothing was even brought to the PUC board until April 22nd. They were not even told that we wanted to have a meeting until April 22nd. And then what was said was that Mr. Butcher explained to the board that he has been waiting for a formal invite and for a list of questions and an agenda so that they could decide if they wanted to come. Well, I'm in my 8th year sitting here, up here at City Council, and so 7 years I participated in joint meetings with the public utilities, and at no point did they ask for a formal invitation or a list of questions and topics. Not once in those 7 years. And at no point did Mr. Butcher let us know that that's what he was waiting for. So now, here we sit, because they didn't know about it until April 22nd, now we're having a meeting that they should have been at, and I feel like if it was that important to the commission to have their meeting before the city council, I would think they would have done everything in their power to be here tonight. And that didn't happen. It's like, wasn't important, it didn't get brought up. So now it's getting put out farther, another month, and now we're looking at another possible month if we give them the option of July. And then now we're looking at Connexus coming in August, and we're just trying to get information in front of us. And I'm tired of the council being controlled by this getting pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. I'm tired of it, and I'm tired of this council allowing it to happen. Why are we allowing this to happen?
Was there any additional information given as to why we needed to do a formal request and provide an agenda? It was mentioned during the commission meeting I was at, but.
I can't
That's
answer
what I'm referring to.
And I can't answer that question. I would concur with Councilor Gerald in the years that I have been here. Mr. Butcher and I were the ones to identify potential dates. The commission and the council would agree to the dates. Mr. Butcher and I would develop the agenda topics, check in with the various, last year we talked about PFAS, the year before I think we talked about their revised rate study, and the capital plan, those types of things. But this year was the first year that it's been requested that they have an invite and that we provide a list of agenda topics.
I would say those three you just mentioned would be good agenda topics, like an update on PFAS. I mean, I sometimes mention it in my report. Just like, talk about PFAS, talk about, like, we have capital improvements that we're planning and they're on phase 2 of kind of their planning. What does that look like? What's coming up?
Yeah, and that would have been fine for a regular meeting, but the point was made that they should come first before Connexus to do whatever they felt they wanted to do before we got information from Connexus.
Right.
So that's why I think these questions were put together. But here we're still sitting, and now we're probably looking at July when the request was made in February. It's very disrespectful to City Council. And frankly, I don't think we should keep waiting.
And I've tried to relay a separation between the two of us where if we want to meet with someone like Connexus, that's our prerogative. So I would say, let's just get it going. You've got June and July, we could do commission and Connexus.
And if they wanna be here, they'll be here. If it's not important to them, then they won't be here, or they won't accept the invitation.
Sure. Then we can look at whatever we.
All we're trying to do is gather information. I don't know why it's so hard for us to be allowed to gather information. It's November. We just need to gather information and we're being blocked and it's not okay. Tired of it. And I would hope the city council is getting tired of it. They're stopping us from doing our job, what we've been elected to do, to educate ourselves and do our due diligence.
Have
So,
we attempted to extend an invite for June 2nd or July 14th yet?
no, because I work at the pleasure of the council. I will remind this body that I attempted to bring Connexus to this body ahead of the PUC. I was thwarted by this body. There was a change from the December meeting to the March meeting. Your direction to me was that you wanted to meet with the PUC first, which frankly, I'm gonna be perfectly blunt, I think is, and I'm really gonna be blunt, and I know we're being recorded, but I think it's ass backwards. But that's just my personal opinion.
And I extended that we were looking to meet with them before Connexus at the last meeting I was at, and they said they didn't see that we needed to have a joint meeting.
Well, I would say we extend the invite, and if we just go forward with it.
So,
They either come to June 2nd or don't come.
Yes.
and are there any other topics besides the 6 that I've identified that you want to add to a potential agenda?
And the additional day.
I don't have anything.
I think they make sense.
Okay. And is the council comfortable with me sending General Manager Butcher the
The invite
invite?
and the topics, and
Okay,
can you, like you've done where you kind of BCC us, can you let us know
Yes.
the response and,
I will do that.
okay.
And this needs to be it, guys. This needs to be it.
In which case then, if that is the desire of the council, then regardless of the response from the Public Utilities Commission, I will then extend an invitation to Mr. Brandt to attend the July 14th meeting.
I'm in agreement with that.
It's still that we talked about a courtesy of talking to the commission first before we do that, and that still accomplishes that.
Okay, I just wanna make my intentions clear. So.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. My direction has been very clear tonight. Thank you. I appreciate that. Kevin and I will get going on our homework.
Thank you, Kevin.
Motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries, we are adjourned.
Yeah.